Welcome back to Whispers in the Dark, the place where terrifying true stories unfold from real encounters. If you love chilling, eerie tales and secrets hidden in the shadows, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Tonight, we're diving into a story so unsettling, I'm sure it'll send a shiver down your spine. So, prepare yourself, because the dark never forgets. Story 1, The Closet in My Grandmother's Room. I was 12 the summer I was sent to live with my grandmother in rural Alabama. My father had just passed away in a construction accident, and my mother, crumbling under the weight of grief, thought it best that I be away for a while. My grandmother's farmhouse stood isolated at the edge of a thick pine forest, the kind of place where time seemed frozen and silence lingered too long. She was a strict, God-fearing woman, with weathered hands and deep lines carved into her face. Her house smelled like lavender, dust, and something else, something old and faintly metallic, like blood rusted into the floorboards. It was the kind of place that whispered when you were alone. Her room was always off limits. "That's my space," she told me. But what really caught my curiosity was the closet in that room. It had a heavy oak door, bolted shut with an old iron lock. I once asked her about it, casually over breakfast, and she went silent for a full minute before muttering, "Just storage. You stay out of there, why here?" Of course, the more someone tells a kid not to do something, the more we want to. One evening, a fierce summer thunderstorm rolled in. The wind howled through the cracks in the window frames, and the lights flickered before dying entirely. My grandmother lit a few candles, gave me one, and told me to stay in the guest room. But the air was hot and sticky, and the old sheets on my bed smelled like mildew. I couldn't sleep. So I wandered. Her door was ajar. That alone sent a chill down my spine. She never left it open. And then I saw it, the closet, wide open. I remember hesitating at the threshold, the candlelight flickering like it was nervous too. Inside the closet, seated neatly on a small wooden chair, was a porcelain doll. Its skin was ghostly white, with shiny black curls and a frilly, faded blue dress. Its glass eyes reflected the candlelight, and they were looking directly at me. It didn't feel like it was placed there. It felt like it had been waiting. I didn't move. Not out of fear, but because something inside me said, if you move, it will too. Then I heard her footsteps. My grandmother burst in, saw me near the closet, and screamed like I was about to jump into a fire. She slapped the candle from my hand, grabbed me by the wrist, and yanked me out of the room. She locked the closet again, double this time, and didn't say a word for the rest of the night. That night, I had a dream, or what I thought was a dream. In it, I stood at the doorway of her room. Everything was exactly as I had seen earlier. The doll was still in the closet, except, the door slowly creaked open. It didn't swing. It groaned, like it was being pulled open from inside. The doll turned its head toward me. Its face cracked at the corners as it smiled. Not warmly, no, this was the kind of smile that said, "I've waited so long." Then it climbed off the chair. Its legs didn't bend properly, they moved with sharp, jerking motions like a puppet with tangled strings. It walked straight toward my grandmother's bed and began climbing up. I tried to scream, to move, anything, but I was frozen. Just before it reached her, I woke up. My pillow was soaked with sweat, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. The next morning, she didn't come down for breakfast. By noon, the paramedics confirmed she had died in her sleep. The funeral was quiet. She didn't have many friends left. I sat alone with my thoughts, shaken, confused, and weighed down by a dread I couldn't explain. After the service, my uncle approached me. He was younger than my mom, a quiet man with soft eyes and a weak smile. "I know what you saw," he said without me saying a word. "What do you mean?" "That doll," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "She kept it locked away for a reason. It belonged to her sister, my aunt. She died when she was 7. Just dropped dead in that same room." I stared at him, waiting for more. "They said it was her heart. But Grandma always said it was the doll. After she died, she started seeing her in the closet, laughing, crying, talking through the doll." I swallowed hard. "They buried it with her, right?" He looked away. "She asked for that. But no. Mom couldn't do it. She kept it." I felt my stomach twist. "So where is it now?" "She told me, if anything ever happened to her, to burn it." "I did. I swear I did." But the way his voice cracked, it didn't sound certain. That night, I went back to the farmhouse one last time to gather my things. I walked past her bedroom, now cold, lifeless. I stopped at the closet. The door was shut. No lock. Just closed. I couldn't help myself. I reached for the handle. As soon as my fingers touched the knob, a sudden gust of icy wind blew through the hallway despite every window being shut. I yanked my hand back and ran out of the house. It's been 10 years since then. I don't talk about that summer. Not to anyone. But sometimes, when the night is still and my house is quiet, I hear the faintest creak from my bedroom closet, followed by a soft thud, like something just shifted inside. And I can't help but wonder, did the doll ever really burn? Or is it still out there waiting for the next door to open? What did you think of this story? Drop a like if it gave you chills and share your thoughts in the comments below. Story 2, The Thing Inside the Doll. My name is Erica, and this happened when I was 17, just 2 years ago. I grew up in a small town in Oregon, surrounded by forests and fog that always seemed to settle a little too low. My mom loved garage sales. She saw them as treasure hunts, and every Saturday morning, she dragged me along. One Saturday, we stopped at this run-down house on the edge of town. The lawn was dead, the porch sagged like it was tired of holding itself up, and there was this odd smell like wet wood and old perfume. That's where she found it. A porcelain doll, tucked into a cardboard box full of knickknacks. Its glass eyes were a dull green, its hair tangled in dry curls. It wore a burgundy velvet dress with gold lace trim. I hated it the moment I saw it. But my mom? She was charmed. Look at her. She's vintage. Maybe even collectible. I told her I didn't want it in the house. She laughed and put it on the dashboard for the ride home. I swear, the temperature in the car dropped by 10 degrees the second she did. At first, it was little things. Our dog wouldn't go near the living room where the doll was placed. He'd just sit in the hallway and whine, staring at it like it might move. The lights in that room flickered randomly, even though no other rooms had electrical issues. Then came the dreams. I started seeing a woman in my sleep, pale skin, sunken eyes, long black hair. She stood at the foot of my bed, whispering in a language I didn't understand. Her mouth didn't move, but I could hear her. One night, I woke up and the doll was sitting on my dresser. It had been in the glass cabinet downstairs. I thought maybe my mom had moved it, so I put it back. The next morning, it was on my nightstand. That's when I stopped sleeping properly. I tried to tell my mom, but she brushed it off. You're imagining things. Stress, maybe. I wasn't stressed. I was terrified. Things escalated quickly. I started hearing scratching from inside my closet at night. Not my something bigger. Something that moved with purpose. I checked. Nothing was ever there. The doll began showing up in other places. The kitchen table. The stairs. Once, I found it in the shower, soaking wet, sitting upright with its eyes fixed on the mirror. Then I found the journal. It was hidden behind the back panel of the cabinet where we had first placed the doll. A leather-bound book with pages stained by age and moisture. The handwriting was jagged and increasingly frantic as the entries progressed. The entries were from a woman named Lillian, a seamstress who once owned the doll. Her last few entries chilled me to the bone. It talks to me when I sleep. It wants to wear me. Last night, I woke up and couldn't move. She was sitting on my chest, whispering through glass teeth. I buried her under the roots of the old elm tree, deep enough so she can't find me again. I ran to my mom and told her everything. She was visibly shaken but still clinging to disbelief. "She's just a doll," she muttered, though her hands were trembling. That night, the power went out. Our phones died. And the scratching in my closet turned into knocking. rhythmic, calculated. Tap, tap, tap. Then a whisper, right behind my ear. "You found her." I screamed and ran to my mother's room. The lights were flickering like a strobe, the air thick and cold. The doll was on her bed on her chest, its eyes staring at me, not her. We threw it into a trash bag and drove straight to the woods behind our house. I carried the bag, shaking, feeling something shift inside it. My mom dug a shallow hole with a shovel while I held the flashlight. When she dropped the doll in, something screamed, not with sound, but inside our heads. It was like every nerve in my body seized at once. I fell to my knees, nauseous, dizzy. We buried it and ran. That night, we didn't sleep. The lights stayed on, and for the first time in weeks, nothing moved. We thought it was over. A month passed. The house felt lighter. I stopped dreaming. The dog relaxed. Then, one evening, we got a call from the police. A hiker had gone missing in the woods behind our property. They found his body near a shallow grave. He'd been trying to dig something up. Next to the hole was a velvet scrap of burgundy fabric. We never spoke of the doll again. But every now and then, when I walk past the window that faces the woods, I see a figure just inside the tree line. Small. Perfectly still. Watching. Waiting. And sometimes, when the wind's just right, I swear I hear a whisper in that same language from my dreams. She wasn't buried deep enough. What did you think of this story? Drop a like if it gave you chills and share your thoughts in the comments below. Story 3, A Deadly Coincidence. My name's Jared, and what I'm about to tell you still keeps me up at night. I'm not someone who believes in fate, or signs, or curses. I'm a math teacher. I believe in logic, patterns. But what happened to me 3 years ago, it wasn't just a coincidence. It was something much darker. I was living in a small apartment just outside Portland, Oregon. It wasn't much, but it was close to school, quiet, and cheap, mainly because the previous tenant had died in it. I didn't care. People die. Life moves on. But my best friend Chris hated the place from day one. He said the energy felt off. I told him he watched too many horror movies. I should have listened. It started with little things, repeated numbers. Every time I looked at the clock, it was 2:22 or 11:11. I'd get receipts with totals like $6.66 or $13.13. Then one day I woke up to a missed call from an unknown number, 666, 666, 6666. Just static on the voicemail. I tried to brush it off. Coincidences. Glitches. But they kept piling up. I kept dreaming of a figure standing in the corner of my room. Always the same. Tall, featureless, but somehow angry. and every time I woke up, my digital clock blinked 3:33 a.m. Chris joked that I had a cursed alarm clock. But the next day, he came over and saw it for himself. "That's just weird," he said. Then he froze. "Dude, is that mold?" There was a black, circular patch growing in the ceiling right above my bed. Perfectly round. Like something had burned it into the drywall. We peeled back the paint. There were numbers scratched into the wood beneath, 3-3-3, repeated over and over. That night, I had the worst dream of my life. I was in my apartment, but everything was wrong. The walls were pulsing like flesh, and that figure was there again, closer this time. I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. It leaned down, face still blank, and whispered in my ear, "You were supposed to die." I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. And my phone was ringing. It was Chris. He was in tears. He'd just gotten news that his older brother, Marcus, had died in a car accident at 3:33 a.m. The car had flipped 3 times. 3 passengers. Chris had spoken to him the night before. The last message Marcus had sent was a joke about how death always comes in threes. We didn't know what to make of it. Chris was devastated, and I felt like I was unraveling. My apartment felt heavier every day, like it was pressing down on me. I started seeing movement out of the corner of my eye, reflections that didn't match what was in the room. I begged my landlord to let me break my lease. He refused. So I started staying with Chris. But the numbers followed me. Hotel room 333. Bill $333.33. One night I checked into a random Airbnb and opened the junk drawer. Inside was a receipt for a funeral service. The name was smudged, but the date read March 3rd, 3:33 p.m. The next morning, I found a note slid under my door. It said, "You escaped once." That was not the plan. No name. No handwriting. Just that. We decided to dig into the history of my apartment. Chris found something. 23 years earlier, on March 3rd, a man named Leonard Clay had killed his wife and child in that exact unit, apartment 3C. Afterward, he carved 333 into the wall and hanged himself in the closet. The police report said he left a note. This was supposed to be me. It was always me. We looked up the tenant before me, Angela Matthews. She'd died in her sleep. Time of death? 3:33 a.m. Her obituary mentioned she had a tattoo of 333 on her wrist, though no one knew why. Chris and I were shaking. I told him I was done. We went back to the apartment to grab the rest of my stuff. The second we walked in, the lights exploded. The black mold had spread across the entire ceiling, forming a massive 3. My phone started vibrating uncontrollably, ringing again and again. Same number. 666, 666, 6666. We ran. But I forgot something: my watch. My dad's old watch. I didn't want to leave it behind. So I went back. Alone. Biggest mistake of my life. The moment I stepped inside, the door slammed shut. The lights went out. And then, silence. Until I heard the ticking. My dad's watch. But it wasn't where I left it. It was on the floor, in the center of the living room. I bent to pick it up, and that's when I saw them. Feet. Bare, gray feet, standing just inches from mine. I looked up. That figure, faceless, massive, towered over me. Its mouth opened wider than any human mouth should, and from it came a sound like hundreds of clocks ticking at once. "This was your time," it said. Then, darkness. I woke up outside. Lying on the grass. Covered in bruises. No idea how I got there. The building was empty. Completely abandoned. Like it hadn't been lived in for years. Even though I had left my things there that morning. I never went back. Chris moved away. Said he couldn't take the nightmares anymore. I've tried to rebuild my life. Moved to another city. Changed my number. Got a new job. But sometimes, I still wake up at 3:33 a.m. And sometimes, I find notes on the bathroom mirror, in my backpack, once even on my pillow. Always the same words. You escaped once. That was not the plan. What did you think of this story? Drop a like if it gave you chills and share your thoughts in the comments below. Story 4, Possession Through the Doll. My name is Marissa. I'm a nurse from Maine, and what I experienced 2 years ago is something I rarely talk about, mainly because it makes me sound insane. But I lived it. I survived it. And deep down, I know someone else out there is going through the same thing and doesn't even realize it. It all started when I inherited my aunt's house. My Aunt Valerie had died suddenly of a stroke. She was eccentric, to say the least. Never married, never had kids, and collected antique dolls like they were living things. Her entire attic was filled with shelves upon shelves of glassy-eyed porcelain faces staring out at nothing. No one else in the family wanted the place, so I moved in. It was a mistake I'll never stop paying for. The house was old, creaky, and cold even in summer. But I liked its charm. It felt like a clean slate. Until I started hearing footsteps in the attic. I thought it was the wood settling. Until I noticed the footsteps were pacing. Always late at night. Always between 2 and 3 a.m. Then came the whispering. Soft at first, like someone murmuring in the next room. The first night I heard it, I got up, thinking I'd left the TV on. But the TV was off. Everything was off. The whispers stopped the second I turned on the light. I didn't sleep well after that. One morning, while sorting through old boxes in the attic, I found something strange. A doll different from the rest. It was sitting alone in a glass case, sealed shut with wax at the edges. Unlike the others, it was dressed in a black lace dress, with long auburn curls and piercing green glass eyes. A tag was pinned to its chest that simply read, "Do not open." I laughed at the melodrama. But something about it felt wrong. I left it untouched and went back downstairs. That night, I dreamed of a little girl standing in my hallway, staring at me. She looked just like the doll. Things escalated fast. I started finding the glass case cracked open. At first, I thought maybe the wax had loosened. But then the doll appeared in different parts of the attic, always upright, always facing the stairs. One night, I found it sitting on the last step, looking down toward my bedroom door. The next day, I called my mom. She told me something I didn't know. That when Valerie was a child, she had a twin sister named Vivian who died under mysterious circumstances. She used to say Vivian never really left, my mom said. Said she could still talk to her, through that doll. I asked why no one told me this before. She went quiet. Because when we tried to throw it out once, your aunt had a seizure. Said Vivian was punishing her. The doll had stayed in that attic ever since. I wanted to believe it was all some kind of delusion. But then I started losing time. It started with little blackouts. I'd look at the clock, blink, and it would be an hour later. I'd find things moved, doors open, candles lit. Then one morning I woke up with dirt under my fingernails and mud on my bare feet. I checked the backyard. A shallow hole had been dug behind the shed. No memory. No explanation. I installed cameras. That night, at exactly 2:33 a.m., I watched myself rise from bed, eyes still closed, walk to the attic, open the glass case, and carry the doll back to my room. The next frame showed me sitting in bed, the doll on my lap, staring at me. Not blinking. Not moving. But watching. And I was smiling. A smile I don't remember making. I showed the footage to a friend who worked in psychiatry. He insisted I get evaluated. Sleepwalking, he said. Maybe dissociative episodes. But then he asked to borrow the footage to show a colleague. He never made it home. Car accident. 2:33 a.m. The only thing recovered from the wreckage was his phone. Still open on the last frame of the video, the one where I was smiling at the doll. I don't remember what happened the following night. Only that I woke up with my own voice recorded on my phone, whispering over and over again. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. But it didn't sound like me. Not entirely. I moved out. left everything behind. But sometimes, I'll wake up and find old dolls placed outside my door, wrapped in lace, with tags that say, "For Marissa, with love, V." I know Vivian is still trying to get through. And I think, one night, I might not be strong enough to keep her out. What did you think of this story? Drop a like if it gave you chills and share your thoughts in the comments below. Story 5, The Soul Keeper. My name is Jacob, and I'm a mechanic living in a quiet little town in Illinois. The events I'm about to describe took place when I was in my late 20s. They have haunted me ever since, and I'm still not sure if I truly escaped the curse that came with the object I encountered. It all began when I found the BUPB the doll. I was at an estate sale, an old house on the edge of town, surrounded by overgrown trees and neglected yards. The house had been vacant for years. Rumor had it that an elderly couple had lived there, both passed away under mysterious circumstances. I wasn't interested in antiques, but I found myself drawn to one particular corner of the sale, a small table covered in odd trinkets and curios. Among them, sat a porcelain doll. It was unsettling. The doll had fine features, too fine, almost lifelike. It wore a pale yellow dress and had piercing blue eyes that seemed to follow me wherever I moved. It wasn't like the other dolls on the table. It was too perfect, too pristine. And its gaze, it felt like it was waiting for something, waiting for me. I bought it for a mere $20. The seller didn't even blink when I took it. I didn't know it then, but that doll would change everything. I brought the doll home, unsure why it felt so important to me. Something inside me wanted to keep it close. I placed it on a shelf in my living room, facing the window, almost as though it was watching over the house. The first few days passed without incident. But soon, I started to notice strange occurrences. Every morning when I woke up, the doll's position had shifted slightly. I thought maybe I was imagining things after all. It was a simple toy, no different from any other. But then it began to get weirder. Sometimes, I would come home from work and find the doll moved from the shelf to the edge of my table. Other times, I would see it staring out the window at dusk, even though I was sure I hadn't placed it there. I asked my neighbor, a woman named Mrs. Green, if she had ever seen anything like it. She looked at me with a serious expression, her eyes darkening. "That doll is not just a doll, Jacob," she said. "It's cursed. You don't want to know the story behind it?" But she wouldn't say anything more. Her words stuck with me, though, and that night I started researching the house I had bought it from. What I found terrified me. The elderly couple, the Vances, had been known in town for their odd habits. They kept to themselves, but there was a story that their house was a place where spirits lingered, drawn to the couple's strange collection of antique artifacts. Some believed that the doll wasn't just a toy, it was the vessel of a spirit, a powerful entity bound to the porcelain. And according to legend, it had claimed several souls over the years. I didn't know what to think. But I knew I had to get rid of the doll. The night I decided to leave the doll by the curb for trash pickup, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard something, a soft, deliberate tapping. My heart raced as I tried to tell myself it was just the house settling. But then I heard it again, this time louder. Tap. 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 I got out of bed, hesitated for a moment, and slowly walked into the living room. The doll was sitting in the same spot as always on the shelf, watching me. I couldn't believe it. I had left it by the trash, but here it was again, on the shelf. Panic gripped me. I quickly grabbed the doll and rushed out of the house, planning to burn it. But when I stepped outside, I froze. The house was covered in a thick fog. The air was still, and the temperature had dropped several degrees in mere moments. In the midst of the fog, I could see something else moving, a shadow in the distance, something large, something unnatural. I dropped the doll in the yard and ran back inside, locking all the doors and windows. My body shook as I tried to comprehend what had just happened. I didn't dare leave the house that night. And when I woke up the next morning, the fog was gone. But so was the doll. The following night, something worse happened. I woke up in the middle of the night to find the doll sitting at the edge of my bed. Its cold, lifeless eyes stared at me as I felt a heavy presence in the room. Something wasn't right. I screamed, but no sound came out. I couldn't move. The room seemed to grow colder, darker, and a voice, soft but clear, whispered in my ear. I am here to take you. I felt an ice-cold hand touch my shoulder, and suddenly, I was no longer in my room. I was in a dark place, filled with the stench of decay. I could hear muffled whispers all around me, voices calling my name, but I couldn't see anyone. My heart hammered in my chest as I tried to move, but my feet were rooted to the floor. Out of the shadows, I saw a figure, tall, thin, and cloaked in darkness. It reached toward me, and in its hand was the doll. You are mine now, it whispered. Before I could scream, I was yanked back into my bed, the doll now at the foot of my mattress. I woke up drenched in sweat, my body trembling. The doll, it had a crack on its face now. A long, jagged crack running across its porcelain cheek. But that was just the beginning. Over the following days, the events became more frequent. I could feel the doll's presence in my house, a constant reminder that it was watching me. I called a priest to bless the house, but even after the prayers and rituals, nothing changed. The doll was still there, waiting for me. I had the doll locked away in a box and buried deep in the woods far from my home. But the nightmares didn't stop. In my dreams, I could see the doll's eyes, glowing with an unnatural light. It was calling to me. 2 weeks ago, I woke up and found the doll sitting on my doorstep. Its cracked face stared at me, and this time, the tag had a new message. It's time for you to join me. I don't know how long I have before it comes for me again. But I can feel its pull. It's getting stronger. And I'm not sure I'll survive the next time it decides to come for me. What did you think of this story? Drop a like if it gave you chills and share your thoughts in the comments below. Story 6, The Dolls. Creaking as though it were slowly coming to life. The room felt colder, and the whispering voice continued, now sounding more like a chant. I felt as though I was being drawn into a trance, unable to look away from the doll. That night, I barely slept. The whispers became more urgent, more desperate. I could hear them in my dreams, two faint voices calling my name, telling me to follow them. And every time I woke up, the doll would be in a different position, always closer to me. By the fifth night, the doll was no longer just an eerie object in my house. It had become an obsession. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and the whispers were constantly in my head. I had to do something. I gathered all my courage and decided to confront the doll. I walked into the living room and picked it up from the chair. As soon as I touched it, the whispering stopped. For a brief moment, everything was silent. But then, the silence was broken by a voice, not a whisper, but a scream. "Sarah, you've touched it? Now you belong to me." The force of the words hit me like a physical blow, and I dropped the doll in shock. It fell to the floor, and I stood frozen, watching as the doll's eyes seemed to gleam with malice. I ran out of the house, leaving the doll behind, but I knew deep down that it was too late. The whispers never stopped. They follow me, no matter where I go. I returned to the house the next day to retrieve the doll, hoping that taking it back to the second-hand store would end the nightmare. But when I walked in, the doll was gone. The shopkeeper told me she had sold it just that morning. "I warned you," she said with a knowing look in her eyes. "It's too late. The doll always comes back. I don't know where it is now, but I hear the whispers every night. They are getting louder. And I know the doll is still out there, waiting." What did you think of this story? Drop a like if it gave you chills and share your thoughts in the comments below. Story 7, The Haunted Legacy. I'm Mark, and I work as a freelance photographer. A few years ago, I was assigned a project to document the history of abandoned houses in rural towns across the Midwest. It seemed like a fascinating opportunity to explore, but I had no idea the horrors I would uncover. In one town, there was a house known as the Morrow House. It had been abandoned for decades, and the locals avoided it at all costs. People whispered about its dark past, and although I was skeptical, my curiosity led me to investigate. The house had been owned by a family who mysteriously disappeared one night, leaving everything behind. Among the abandoned relics, I found an old, cracked doll. At first glance, it seemed like nothing more than a forgotten object, but there was something deeply unsettling about it. Its eyes followed me as I entered the room, and despite its decaying state, it seemed strangely alive. The moment I picked up the doll, a chill ran down my spine. I felt like something was watching me, no, not watching, waiting. I tried to shake off the feeling, but the air felt thicker, as though the house itself was holding its breath. Later that night, I set up my camera in the main living room to take some photos of the decaying furniture and old trinkets. As I reviewed the photos on my camera, one image stood out, the doll, clearly visible in the corner of the room, but it wasn't there when I took the shot. I quickly turned around, and the doll was sitting on a chair that wasn't there moments before. My heart raced. I had clearly seen it on the floor just minutes earlier. I tried to leave, but my car wouldn't start. The air outside had grown colder, and an unsettling silence enveloped the house. I realized I was trapped inside. I decided to investigate the history of the Morrow family, hoping to make sense of the strange occurrences. The more I dug into their past, the more I learned about the mysterious death surrounding the house. Every time a new family moved in, they would vanish, leaving only one object behind, the same porcelain doll. The doll had belonged to their daughter, Abigail Morrow, who had died under suspicious circumstances. The family was never seen again, and rumors spread that Abigail's spirit had attached itself to the doll. That night, as I tried to sleep in one of the rooms, I heard a soft voice whispering my name. It was Abigail's voice. She told me she wanted to play, but I was not welcome. I felt a cold, invisible hand brushing against my neck, and my flashlight flickered wildly. I grabbed my things, ready to run, but when I reached the door, I realized something horrifying. The doll was standing in the doorway, blocking my escape. Panicking, I turned to leave through the back door. But as I stepped outside, the wind howled around me, and the ground trembled beneath my feet. It was as if the house itself was alive, moving, shifting. I could hear Abigail's laughter behind me, growing louder, more manic. I turned to face her, and there she stood, the ghostly figure of Abigail, her face twisted in a grotesque smile, holding the doll in her hands. The ground beneath me cracked open, and I felt myself being pulled toward it. My camera, which I had dropped in my haste, began to flash on its own, capturing images of the doll in the corner of the frame. The last thing I saw before I lost consciousness was Abigail's face, grinning wickedly. When I woke up, I was lying outside the Morrow house. I couldn't explain how I got there. The doll was nowhere to be found. Since then, I've been haunted by strange dreams. I see the doll, its eyes following me wherever I go, and I hear Abigail's laughter in the distance. I've tried to move on, but every time I close my eyes, I know the doll is still waiting for me. What did you think of this story? Drop a like if it gave you chills, and share your thoughts in the comments below. And that's the end of today's tale. How did that make you feel? Those creepy, unsettling events, do you think there might be more lurking behind closed doors in your own home? Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown, and I hope that after hearing this story, you'll be a little more cautious when the lights go out. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more spine-chilling tales, don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends. Also, leave a comment below. I'd love to know what you think of today's story. And of course, Make sure you hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a terrifying new video from Whispers in the Dark. Thank you for watching, and remember, never venture into the dark alone.